This is wonderful news for my dear friend Jimmy and his amazing staff. They continue their show. That's right. You know, I'm so happy for them. Plus, now that Jimmy's not being canceled, I get to enjoy this again. Yeah. I was just, once more, I am the only martyr in late nights. Wait, unless, CBS, you want to announce anything? Yes.
When I heard it, I was in the midst of, building a great, for 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom at the White House, right? They don't have a ballroom. They have to use tents on the lawn for President Xi when he comes over. If it rains, it's a wipeout. And so I was with the architects that would design. It's going to be incredible.
Like that. And why are we building a $200 million ballroom in the White? Is it possible that he's doing it intentionally so we could be bad about that instead of the Epstein list? By the time he's out of office.
What started with a cell phone, a live microphone, and one of the most recognizable political figures in the world allegedly watching from home quickly turned into a moment nobody could stop talking about. Right in the middle of the Oscars broadcast, Jimmy Kimmel casually pulled out his phone and began reading a lengthy social media post criticizing him, repeating the message exactly as it had been written. You could feel the tension building with every line as the audience listened closely, wondering where it was all going. Then came the moment that changed everything. Kimmel looked up from the screen, delivered a perfectly timed response, and joked about whether it wasn't getting a little late for someone's time behind bars. The reaction was instant. The theater exploded with laughter, cheers filled the room, and cameras caught smiling faces everywhere they turned. In just a few seconds, what started as a simple reading of an online complaint became one of the most unforgettable highlights of the entire night, sending social media into a frenzy and making sure this exchange would be talked about long after the ceremony was over.
As I said, we're just 9 months into Trump's turn, and he's going Hulk smash on the White House. Last time, it took him at least 4 years to bring a demo crew to the Capitol. This is happening after Trump specifically promised his ballroom construction wouldn't touch the existing White House. Here he is talking about it this summer.
It won't interfere with the current building. It'll be near it, but not touching it. And pays total respect to the existing building, which I'm the biggest fan of. It's my favorite place. I love it.
So that was a lie.
Now, instead of the Chinese government harvesting our thoughts, interests, and personal information, Trump's buddy will have them instead. At least it's somebody we can trust, though, right?
March 10, 2024, was supposed to be a night focused on celebrating the biggest achievements in film, but it quickly became something nobody saw coming. Inside the Dolby Theater, the 96th Academy Awards were unfolding in front of a massive global audience. The room was filled with actors, filmmakers, and some of the biggest names in entertainment, all expecting an evening of glamour, celebration, and recognition. But then the attention suddenly shifted to a political figure who wasn't even in the building. As Jimmy Kimmel continued hosting the show, news reached him that Donald Trump had posted a sharply worded message on Truth Social, criticizing the host and calling him the worst Oscars presenter in history. According to later reports, people behind the scenes encouraged Kimmel to ignore the comment, stay focused on the broadcast, and move on without giving it any attention. That probably would have been the safer choice, but it wasn't the choice that was made. Instead, what happened next became the defining moment of the entire ceremony, a brief exchange that instantly overshadowed countless award wins, dominated headlines, and left people talking long after the final Oscar had been handed out.
Said was this.
I just got a review, and has there ever been a worse host than Jimmy Kimmel at the Oscars? His opening was that of a less than average person trying too hard to be something which he is not and never can be. Get rid of Kimmel and perhaps replace him with another washed up but cheap ABC talent, George Slopanopoulos. He would make everybody on stage look bigger, stronger, and more glamorous. Blah, blah, blah. Make America great again. See if you can guess which former president just posted that on Tuesday. Anyone? No? Well, thank you, President Trump. Thank you for watching. I'm surprised you're still... Isn't it past your jail time?
The audience's reaction told the whole story before reporters, commentators, or anyone else had a chance to weigh in. As cameras moved across the room, They caught celebrities trying to hold back their laughter, while familiar faces like Emma Stone and Bradley Cooper looked genuinely surprised by the unexpected turn the night had taken. Because it all happened during ABC's live broadcast, viewers at home experienced every moment in real time, with nothing cut out and nothing edited. The impact was immediate. Even before the Academy Awards had ended, news organizations were already rushing to cover the exchange, recognizing that something memorable had just happened. By the following day, social media, entertainment sites, and political discussions were all focused on the same story. What captured people's attention was surprisingly simple yet incredibly effective. A former president watching Hollywood's biggest night from his living room had unexpectedly become one of the evening's most talked about jokes. What made the moment stand out even more was how quickly the dynamic changed. The person trying to draw attention to himself suddenly found that attention redirected in a completely different way. Instead of controlling the conversation, he became the conversation, turning an attempt to grab the spotlight into one of the most widely discussed moments of the entire night.
Time magazine dropped a new issue to commemorate the deal. Let's take a look at his heroic cover shot. Okay. Ooh. Worst Georgia O'Keeffe ever. You know what?
We've had a hell of a couple of weeks, but I did get some exciting news this weekend. According to a new poll from YouGov, which is a serious polling site, or they were before this, I am more popular than the President of the United States.
Sometimes a single joke can completely change the direction of a story, and this was one of those moments. The reaction inside the theater made that clear almost instantly. Cameras captured audience members laughing uncontrollably, while stars like Emma Stone and Bradley Cooper looked genuinely caught off guard by what had just happened. Because the exchange unfolded live on ABC, millions of people at home watched every second in real time, making it impossible to ignore. News outlets moved quickly, publishing stories and analyzing the moment before the ceremony had even come to an end. By the next morning, the conversation was everywhere, dominating social media, entertainment headlines, and political discussions alike. The story that emerged was simple but powerful. A former president watching the Academy Awards from home had unexpectedly become one of the night's most memorable punchlines. What made the moment so effective was the complete reversal at the center of it. The person trying to draw attention to himself suddenly found that attention turning right back around in a way he likely never expected. In many ways, the entire episode became a perfect example of how comedy can take control of a conversation, shift public focus, and reshape the story people remember instead of allowing criticism to set the narrative. The response flipped the spotlight around and transformed an attempted attack into a moment that audiences simply could not stop talking about.
That I'm not a convicted felon friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and I've never paid off a porn star or sent a team of masked goons into a park to pull an old lady away from her grandchildren. I feel like my rating should be higher, maybe, than... At this point, finding a toenail in your salad has a 7-point lead over Donald Trump. And I hope he doesn't see this. I hate to, I don't like to upset him, but I think he might be upset because the White House put out a statement this afternoon. This is a real statement. Over 77 million Americans showed up on Election Day to cast their ballots for President Donald J. Trump, who is delivering on his overwhelming mandate to put America first. Jimmy Kimmel prays every night to garner a fraction of that support to keep his show on air after ratings dropped 64% last week. Sad. I like sad with an exclamation point.
Late-night hosts had been joking about Trump for years, so criticism aimed at him was nothing unusual. What made this particular moment different was the timing and the setting. Standing in front of a massive global audience during one of the entertainment industry's biggest events, Jimmy Kimmel chose to turn Trump's own public comments into part of the show itself. That instantly made the moment feel bigger than a typical political joke or celebrity roast. The focus shifted away from the criticism and toward the reaction it created. People weren't just laughing at a punchline, they were reacting to the unique circumstances that made the exchange so unforgettable. The combination of perfect timing, enormous visibility, and pure spontaneity created a moment that felt much larger than an ordinary late-night comedy segment. What's even more interesting is that the dynamic didn't end when the Oscars were over. As time went on, similar exchanges continued to appear, becoming a familiar part of the ongoing relationship between late-night television and one of the most talked-about figures in American politics. By October 2025, Kimmel was once again using his opening monologue to respond to another complaint from Trump, reinforcing the idea that these public back-and-forth moments had grown into an ongoing storyline that audiences had come to expect. The pattern kept repeating, and each new exchange attracted attention not only because of the joke itself, but because of the larger conversation surrounding it and the public fascination that seemed to follow every encounter.
At this point, should we even believe that this is going to end up being a ballroom? It could just as easily end up being a combination Pizza Hut Taco Bell. Now, someone in his administration is clearly smart enough to know how bad this looks, because the Treasury Department is right next door facing the demolition, and Treasury has now told their employees not to share any photos of the construction. Not generally something you instruct when you're proud of what's going on. Hey guys, remember, no photos at my wedding, and it's not because I'm marrying a body pillow of Mariah Carey.
Kimmel once again returned to a familiar source of material by bringing up another Truth Social post, this time centered on a Time magazine cover that reportedly didn't sit well with Trump. Instead of launching into a direct attack, he approached the topic with exaggerated sympathy, joking that maybe the real issue was simply the lighting in the photograph. The remark instantly created a funny image in people's minds, portraying a powerful public figure seemingly bothered by an unflattering picture. The audience immediately picked up on the contrast, and laughter spread through the room almost as soon as the joke landed. But underneath the humor was a sharper observation about public image and the influence it can have on people in the spotlight. Kimmel's routine hinted at the idea that reputation, appearance, and public perception had become so important that even a magazine cover could trigger a strong reaction. That deeper point gave the joke an extra layer of impact. It wasn't really just about a photograph, it was about what that photograph represented and why it mattered so much. In Kimmel's version of the story, the irony was hard to miss. The challenge wasn't coming from political opponents, critics, or media commentators. Instead, the punchline suggested that the toughest opponent was staring right back from the cover itself, turning the reflection into the very thing that ended up stealing the spotlight.
Sad that the President of the United States has a lower approval rating than Diddy and diarrhea. That's what's sad. You know, if he's looking... and no one cares very deeply about this sort of thing. If he's looking to improve his approval numbers, I have an idea. Release the Epstein files. Yeah.
Did you ever think the President of the United States would be celebrating your unemployment?
I mean, that son of a bitch, you know, is really unbelievable.
Mr. Son of a bitch.
I mean,
Mr. Son of a bitch.
His royal... Yes, yeah, no, I never imagined that we'd ever have a president like this, and I hope we don't ever have another president like this again. I mean, I never even imagined there would ever be a situation in which the president of our country was celebrating hundreds of Americans losing their jobs. With somebody who took pleasure in that. That, to me, is the absolute opposite of what a leader of this country is supposed to be.
The monologue spread with remarkable speed. Within hours, news outlets, entertainment websites, and television commentators were already breaking down the segment, while clips of the funniest moments flooded social media and were shared over and over again. That ability to spark conversation has always been one of Kimmel's greatest strengths. Rather than relying heavily on anger or direct confrontation, he often uses sharp, carefully timed humor to take larger-than-life public figures and reveal the more comical side of their image. By turning displays of self-importance into material for jokes, he creates moments that audiences find both entertaining and surprisingly relatable. As the story moves forward, the focus shifts from one late-night stage to another, and from one host to a fellow veteran of political comedy. The scene changes to May 1, 2017, inside the studio of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Papers are scattered across the desk, sleeves are rolled up, and there's a clear sense of anticipation in the room. The audience can feel that something significant is about to happen. Trump has recently criticized CBS during an interview, and Colbert is preparing his response. What follows is far more than just another opening monologue. It becomes one of the most talked about segments of his career, a moment that captures attention well beyond the studio audience and secures its place as a major chapter in the ongoing story between late-night television and presidential politics.
At the White House, Trump talked about his wrecking ballroom, and the one thing I don't think we make enough fun of is how his brain is filled with cotton candy fantasies of lavish princely soirees.
So you'll have drinks, cocktails, everything on this floor. And then they'll say, welcome to dinner. You walk into the ballroom, Mr. Senators, and you're going to see a ballroom the likes of which I don't think it'll be topped.
There'll be drinks, cocktails, like this, drinks and cocktails.
The vast majority say they want to see the Epstein files. 77% of Americans want the Epstein files released, but 100% of our American president does not want them released. Trump's treating these Epstein files like the grumpy old neighbor on Halloween. He turns off all the lights and just hopes the trick-or-treaters will assume there's nobody home. He's like, do you people not understand what a wonderful secret?
He delivered a remark that immediately sent shockwaves through television audiences and online conversations alike. The reaction inside the studio was instant, with laughter echoing throughout the room, while viewers at home responded with a mix of surprise, amusement, and disbelief. Almost overnight, the segment became one of the most talked about moments in entertainment media, sparking intense debate across news broadcasts, social media platforms, and opinion columns. The conversation grew so large that reports suggested thousands of complaints were submitted to regulatory agencies as critics voiced their objections. Yet despite the backlash and predictions from some observers that serious consequences might follow, the outcome turned out very differently. As reviews were completed and the controversy slowly faded, there were no suspensions, no official penalties, and no removal from the air. If anything, the attention seemed to generate even greater public interest. Viewership increased, media coverage expanded, and discussions about the show became more widespread than ever. What some critics expected to be a major setback ultimately became one of the defining milestones of Colbert's time in late-night television. The very joke that many believed could damage his standing ended up doing the opposite, strengthening his profile, increasing the visibility of the show, and further cementing his reputation as one of the most influential voices in modern late-night comedy.
Case in point, yesterday, as part of his White House ballroom project, he sent out a backhoe to rip off a chunk of the East Wing. That is it. We are not giving him the security deposit back. Yvonne, can we see that picture again? That is so deeply unsettling. It's like being a kid and seeing your teacher at the grocery store. For sale.
On Sunday, he sat up in bed and posted, the NFL has to get rid of that ridiculous-looking new kickoff rule. How can they make such a big and sweeping change so easily and quickly? It's at least as dangerous as the normal kickoff and looks like hell. Sissy football is bad for America and bad for the NFL.
After that headline-grabbing controversy, Colbert once again found himself responding to a Trump comment that quickly became the center of national debate. In December 2023, Trump said during an interview that he would be a dictator, but only on the first day, a remark that immediately sparked discussion across political and media circles. When Colbert addressed the statement on his show the following night, he responded with a comparison that instantly caught the audience's attention. Looking straight into the camera, he joked that the reasoning sounded a lot like someone promising they would only commit a serious crime once. The audience burst into laughter, not just because of the joke itself, but because of how effectively it mixed humor with a broader point. The punchline was unexpected, memorable, and impossible to ignore. That style has become one of Colbert's trademarks over the years. Rather than avoiding uncomfortable or controversial topics, he often takes complicated political discussions and turns them into sharp, easy-to-follow comedy. By wrapping serious subjects inside memorable jokes, he gives audiences a way to engage with the conversation that feels immediate and accessible. In those moments, the laughter isn't separate from the discussion, it becomes part of it, helping reinforce the point rather than distracting from it.
Disney put Kimmel back on because you, the American people, were upset, okay? But not just people, also Ted Cruz. It's true. Cruz was one of the conservatives who were outraged by the administration's attack on free speech.
He threatens explicitly, we're going to cancel ABC's license. We're going to take him off the air so ABC cannot broadcast anymore. He threatens it. He says, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way. Yeah. And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, "Nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it."
Wow, I gotta say, I am shocked that I agree with Ted Cruz on something.
Today, Caitlin Collins from CNN asked Trump whether he plans to pardon Epstein's right-hand woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, and whereas he's usually, very quick to weigh in bigly on this type of thing, for this one, suddenly even-tempered and even deferential.
The Supreme Court is back in session.
Yeah.
They rejected today an appeal by Ghislaine Maxwell to overturn her conviction. That means her only chance at getting out of prison is a pardon from you. Is that something you're open to?
Who are we talking about?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
I haven't heard the name in so long. I can say this, that I'd have to take a look at it. I'll look at it. I have a lot of people who've asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy has asked me for a pardon.
She was convicted of child sex trafficking.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take a look at it. I have to ask DOJ.
Oh, yeah. Ask DOJ and get back to us, please.
June 3, 2024, brought what many viewers saw as one of the most remarkable twists in this long-running story. Following Trump's guilty verdict in the hush money case, Colbert stepped onto the stage and addressed the audience during a segment that quickly captured widespread attention. What happened next carried a level of symbolism that was hard to ignore. Colbert encouraged the crowd to join in a chant that echoed a phrase closely associated with Trump's political rise years earlier. As the audience joined in, the significance of the moment became immediately obvious. A slogan that had once been a fixture of political rallies was now being repeated in a completely different setting and aimed in a completely different direction. The reversal was striking. Millions of viewers watched as language that had previously been used as a political weapon returned in a new form, transformed into a piece of televised commentary and performance. The power of the moment came not just from the chant itself, but from the history attached to it. For many observers, it felt like a rare full-circle moment, where a familiar message reappeared under dramatically different circumstances. The irony was impossible to miss, and that irony became the driving force behind the segment's impact, turning it into yet another memorable chapter in the ongoing intersection of politics, media, and late-night television.
We're shocked that he somehow got Robert De Niro to come on the podcast. That was beautiful. Meh, see, meh, I'm taking off the air. See, meh, I'm the FCC. Meh, meh. ABC was being flooded with complaints about taking Jimmy off the air, but not all those complaints went to the right place because down under, the Australian Broadcasting Company, which also goes by the initials ABC, was being barraged by misdirected complaints about the Kimmel suspension. Come on, folks. Leave him alone. Don't attack Australian ABC. I mean, there's nothing, they never canceled their popular.
At the heart of all these moments is one recurring theme. Colbert consistently finds ways to flip the narrative and redirect attention back to where it started. In many ways, that's the same approach that connects both Colbert and Kimmel, even though they go about it differently. Kimmel often takes Trump's own public statements and uses them as the foundation of his response, reflecting the words back in a way that highlights their contradictions, irony, or unintended humor. Colbert, on the other hand, tends to work from a different angle. He takes familiar political slogans, campaign rhetoric, and well-known talking points and reshapes them into memorable moments of live television. One host presents the comments and lets the audience sit with them. The other transforms political messaging into a performance that blends satire, storytelling, and commentary. Despite those differences in style, both arrive at a similar destination. Rather than relying on long explanations or detailed analysis, they present the material in a way that allows viewers to reach their own conclusions. That's what makes their approach so effective. They don't necessarily tell people what to think. Instead, they place the words, actions, and reactions right in front of the audience and let the contrast speak for itself. In doing so, they accomplish something many commentators spend hours trying to achieve. They hold up a mirror to the story and invite viewers to examine what they see, allowing the humor, irony, and contradictions to reveal themselves naturally.
There's a lot going on there. It's like one of those optical illusions where you can't tell if it's an old woman or a young ball sack. You gotta move, what's that?
He calls him Puff Daddy. That's relevant. The notorious PIG is busy with all manner of distractions right now. He rallied the troops in Norfolk over the weekend at an event to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the Navy. He treated the crowd to his signature dance and to his still inexplicable theme song. I mean, come on, if you're gonna play the village people, how do you not go within the Navy on that day? It's not.
President Trump has repeatedly used terms like low-rated, failing, and disgusting when talking about late-night hosts and comedians. What makes the situation so interesting, though, is how often the public reaction seems to go in the exact opposite direction. Each new criticism tends to spark another wave of attention. Every public complaint generates fresh headlines, renewed debate, and another reason for audiences to tune in. Clips spread rapidly across social media, television segments are replayed and analyzed, and viewers become curious to see how the latest exchange will play out. The pattern has repeated itself so many times that the irony is hard to ignore. Efforts intended to reduce a comedian's influence or credibility often end up increasing their visibility instead. Rather than disappearing from the conversation, the hosts frequently find themselves at the center of an even bigger one. As the years have gone by, a broader lesson has started to emerge from this ongoing back and forth. Political figures may be used to debating journalists, confronting opponents, and responding to analysts, but public clashes with comedians are a completely different challenge. Comedy operates under a different set of rules, where timing, perception, and audience reaction can turn even the most serious disagreement into a memorable punchline. In that environment, controlling the narrative becomes much more difficult, and the person trying to win the argument can sometimes end up becoming the joke instead.
Tough PR week for the GOP. Last week, Politico published a young Republican group chat loaded with horrible messages like, "I love Hitler." Then, a Republican congressional staffer was seen on Zoom with a Nazi swastika American flag hanging on the wall behind him. But folks, that's all in the past. Until yesterday, we found out that a Trump nominee boasted of having a Nazi streak in group chats. All right, Yvonne, let's reset the counter. Days since last Republican Nazi thing. There you go.
Dancing Donald wasn't the only Trump on hand to fire the sailors up.
Hoo-yah, Navy! Hoo-yah, Navy! Hoo-yah, Navy!
Hoo-yah means help me in Slovenian. The president landed in a chopper to the tune of Danger Zone from top.
Some comedy moments disappear almost as quickly as they arrive, while others take on a life of their own and become part of the broader cultural conversation for years. Kimmel's Oscars response and several of Colbert's most talked about punchlines fall into that second category because people kept quoting them, sharing them, and discussing them long after the original broadcasts had ended. That lasting impact highlights an important difference between a social media post and a truly memorable joke. A post can be edited, deleted, or simply forgotten over time. But a joke that genuinely connects with people often continues circulating long after the event that inspired it has faded from the headlines. When viewed as part of a larger story, Kimmel's evolution is especially striking. He first became widely known for celebrity-focused entertainment, playful stunts, comedy sketches, and a lighter style of late-night television. At the time, few would have predicted that he would eventually become one of the most consistent political critics in late-night comedy. Yet that's exactly what happened. As the years passed, he gradually embraced a different role, using humor not just to entertain but also to comment on major public figures and national conversations. Through that transformation, he built a reputation as one of the most recognizable comedians willing to challenge powerful personalities with satire, wit, and sharp observations. In the process, he turned comedy into a tool that could shape discussions far beyond the traditional boundaries of entertainment.
And Donald Trump gave a crowd in Indiana, Pennsylvania, yet another review of my performance at the Academy Awards.
Remember the Academy Awards? I said how he's the worst host in the history of the Academy Awards. And this stupid guy goes up, and just before the Best Picture of the Year, The show is almost over. They're waiting for the best picture of the year. He gets up and he says, and his wife said, please don't do it. Please, darling, don't go out. His manager said, don't do it. I have to do it. He goes out and reads my truth to the entire audience right before the best prime time, the best picture. And it said basically, he is the worst host of the history. He reads the whole thing. And then I think he said something like, ha, 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 he thinks he bothers me or some crap like that. I said, he's one of the dumbest human beings ever. He should have listened to his wife. What a dope.
Duck Rabbit. Now, of course, the President of the United States is far too busy hammering out the details of a deal to end a generational conflict in the Middle East to worry about how he looks on some bi-weekly magazine, you would think. But, of course, he posted, Time magazine wrote a relatively good story about me, but the picture may be the worst of all time. He's right. You gotta hand it that. It is. It is one of the worst.
That's exactly why these moments continue to stay with audiences long after the broadcasts are over. One of Trump's most recognizable political strengths has always been his ability to capture attention and keep the spotlight focused on himself. But hosts like Kimmel and Colbert found a way to take that same attention and turn it into a reliable source of comedy. They didn't rely on secret recordings, anonymous insiders, or behind-the-scenes revelations to make their point. Instead, they used a much older and often more effective formula: take a recognizable truth, present it to the audience, and sharpen it with humor until the underlying message becomes impossible to ignore. That approach has been at the center of many of their most memorable moments. Whether people remember Kimmel's widely discussed Oscars response or Colbert's audience chant that echoed through the studio, both examples point to the same idea. The strongest late-night comedy is rarely just about getting a laugh. It works because it highlights a larger pattern that people already recognize, even if they haven't fully thought about it before. The joke creates the opening, but the deeper observation is what gives it lasting power. As a result, audiences end up doing two things at the same time. They laugh at the punchline in the moment, but they also leave thinking about the bigger message underneath it. That combination of entertainment and insight is often what separates a joke that's quickly forgotten from one that remains part of the conversation for years.